All right, folks. How's it going? Uh-oh. I don't have any sound, do we? What happened to my sound? Tech. Gameplay sound. Headphones. There we go. All right, we got our sound back. Got our sound. All right. All right, that should be good. Hi, everybody. I'm Bogsy. Hi. How's it going? What's up? Nice to see you all. We're going to be doing a couple fun things today. Number one, we've got some really cool guests. I grabbed two of the producer/artist/team leads from Manticore. We're going to talk about what it means to come up with designs. Basically, what it means to go from sort of a overall request to a concept to a feature request, and then onto modeling and texturing and stuff like that, and then finally onto what it means to actually implement it in terms of stats, in terms of balance, and all that kind of stuff. So lots of fun stuff. We're going to start with them at about 30 minutes into the stream, but for now you have to watch me play. How you like that? How you like that? How you like them apples? How you like them apples? I'm gonna see if I can get these guys to play with me. Look at that! Multiple people! Look at this. Multiple people willing to play. How about that? What happened to... Ah, okay. Hello, fellas! Playing a few runs before we have guests on the stream. I love typing in chat on the stream. That is high quality content, by the way. That is like peak content. Hello Morgan, hello Robert. Hey, it's Robert. What's up, man? Hello Zayev, hello Lone Wolf, which I think is pretty sure Lone Wolf is Kevin. Hello Kevin. What's going on? Yeah, art department's gonna be on. I have Sasha and Evan. Smash 'em. Smash 'em's in-game and on stream. How about that? Very excited. Thank you, Robert. So, I guess we'll just play, we'll go play a little bit of, I don't need to use the in-game chat? Alright, fine. You know, I've played Overgrown Village so many times looking for the Draconis' horns that, like, I don't even know, man. I don't even know. It's hard to say. Like, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore. I'm just looking for legendary Draconis' horns. That's all I want. Maybe legendary axe. I think legendary axe. Let's do it. We can do it. We can do legendary. We can definitely do legendary axe. Legendary axe is a solid weapon. Oh my god, my game crashed. What happened? Oh no. Oh, this is sad for me. Rip. Did my game crash or did I think the game crashed? Well, that's fine. I'll just come back here. I have to tell you guys, the screen, like the main theme for Out of Time reminds me a lot of Stranger Things. And I say that because my wife has been watching non-stop Stranger Things waiting for the new season to come out, so. Well, that was a bummer. Bummer way to start, but that's okay. I'm sure that these guys... Yeah. My bad, fellers. My bad. Alright. We're gonna try this again. LOL. We're going to try again. Alright. Here we go. For real this time. Once more with feeling. I know, missed my one chance at getting the axe, right? No, Robert, my new PC has not arrived yet. It will arrive, I think, on December 10th. Which is, it's a little bit of a wait. I realize that. But apparently shipping a computer from, I think it's made in Utah?
Press the button to
I forget where exactly it's made. where Newegg makes their PCs.
5, 4.
It is a Bogsy gift to Bogsy. Yes, actually, this is the first time I've ever bought myself a new desktop. I have purchased laptops before. I've never purchased a new desktop. All of my desktops have been hand-me-downs. One from my dad, which was pretty funny, just way back in the day. He's like, I got this old desktop. You want it? I said, sure. And then another one was in 2021. Actually, a viewer of my then very new Livestream said to me, he said, hey, I also have a older desktop. It's better than, he said, it's better than yours, because he knew what mine was. It's better than yours, but if you could pay the, he said, if you could pay the shipping, I'd be happy to send it to you. So I did, and so I got it. And that's what we're currently using right now. And it's fine. It was good for what I used to use it for. Unfortunately, it struggles to play and stream, and also I find myself doing a lot more video editing nowadays, and it does not do video editing super well because it just doesn't have that. It is an i5. It's an i5 processor with a 5060. And it's funny because I bought the 5060 knowing it would be better. I was running a 1070 Ti for years. Like the ultimate workhorse video card, right? The 1070 Ti, the one that refuses to quit. I feel like the 1070 Ti is like, it's like the F16, right? It's like the F16 in the sense that it's really old, but like it can still carry weight. Like it can still do what you need it to, just not optimally. So, yep, I got a 5060. I got a 5060, and then I realized after I got the 5060, the processor is actually not, the processor's not good enough to make even full use out of the 5060. So I'm sort of sitting on this 5060 like a ding-dong, like, oh, it's not even really doing what I need it to. So when I got this new computer, I was like, all right, fine. I will, for my very first desktop ever, I'll buy an i9 14700 processor, about as good as you can get, and then I will splurge for a 5080. So I know, I mean 5060 is not incredible, but like 5060 is probably better than a 1070 Ti. Not by a whole lot, but some. So you know, it's sort of funny how that works. But the 5080 should at least last me quite a while. That'll last me a few years, no question. And I'm trying to get it now before the insane RAM price kicks in on GPUs. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. It's not ready yet. Some of you guys were asking. It's not ready yet. Sadly. I really feel like the 1070 Ti though, like, that should just be, when it's finally time to discard that, I'm gonna make that meme of like the Grim Reaper escorting it off. You know, was I a good graphics processing unit? No. I hear you were the best. Because it's lasted me a very, very long time. Very, very long time. So anyway, frame it in resin. I should frame it in resin, mount it on the wall. Actually, it would be pretty funny to mount it on the wall behind me, like as part of my just stream decor. Shit. As part of my stream decor, like this was the one that carried me. This was my first streaming card, and it carried me. It carried me to a new job at a video game company. 1070 Ti. What is that on your wall? Glad you asked, son. Gather around the Snapchat. Gather around the Snapchat, warm your hands, and we'll have a discussion about the 1070 Ti. Back in my day, you didn't replace your graphics card until it literally gave up and shot itself in the head. Oh, just a humble graphics card. That's right. Like, you know how in war, you know, the tanks and the planes... Oh, shit. I just crashed again. That's not great. I'm going to have to send my reports. Ugh. I'm going to have to send my... Shit, two crashes in one match. I'm going to have to send my reports back to the people who take reports. Sorry. Sorry, guys. I didn't even get to choose my gear. I wonder what gear I get at the end there. That's a bummer. Good thing my new PC is around the corner. Yep. Yes, indeed. Is this on a live server? Yes. Yes, it is. Earned rewards. Oh, you guys, wait. I wonder if I get... Okay, I've never actually... I don't know if I get a piece of equipment when they're done. I'll wait for them to get back. Well, that's a disappointment. Boop. Okay. That is a disappointment. So, how was everybody's Thanksgiving? I do want to know... I'm not in the party anymore, so I don't get the equipment? Damn it. There's only 20 minutes until we interview people, guys. Like, I need some equipment. You know what's funny, too, is that... Well, one of the things my computer really doesn't want to do now is it really, really doesn't want to roll with, like... I have a lot of tabs open right now. I have a lot of tabs, and I have a lot of windows open. So because of that, it's putting a huge strain on the processor and on the RAM. I actually have like 32 gigs of RAM in here, so it's not, you know, it's not that big of a deal. But well, shoot, fellas, how about round 3? Damn it! All I want is a legendary axe. You're crashing because I'm playing with Smash 'em? Oh, sorry, Tim. I didn't see your message. I didn't see your message until the end there. Apologies. Otherwise, I would have brought you in. Gotta beat the crash clock. Yeah, I know. Gotta get the match finished. So, you know what? Not only... There's 2 things that are on their way to my house right now that I'm very excited about. One is the new PC, no question. The other is mold testing kits. Isn't that exciting, guys? Is that the coolest thing you've ever heard of? Like, that's all I wanted for Christmas was mold testing kits. The reason I say that is because my office, where I am currently, is in the basement. The basement is finished, meaning it's carpeted, and it has walls with drywall and all those good things, you know, you want from a room. However, it's also next to the room where the sump pump is. For those of you that don't know what a sump pump is, a sump pump is the thing in the floor that it collects any sort of extra water that's coming from the ground area around the house. It collects it and then pumps it back outside. If you live in a nice, wet, cloudy place like Indiana, like I do, it rains a lot. Because of that, the groundwater will swell up, and you need to make sure that as the groundwater fills up, your house pumps it back out. However, it means that it's very moist in that room. Yes, exactly, Robert. It prevents the basement from flooding. That's the very concise way of saying what I spent way too much time saying. Keeps the basement from flooding. However, that room is moist, and even though I have a dehumidifier in there to keep it from being too moist, as one might say, I'm pretty sure that there is still mold growing in there because my voice has been screwed up since we moved into this house, which has been since July. I don't know if you can hear it, but every once in a while my voice will catch. I actually have a very nice voice. I was trained to speak at school. And, well, my voice sucks right now. My voice is constantly cracking, and it's constantly catching. And it's scratching. Midwest represent. Yeah, C. Johnson. You don't want to be a sump pump chump. A sump pump chump is the guy who doesn't have a sump pump. It's true. I used to have the sweet, sultry voice of hot, humid Texas air, which keeps my vocal cords nice and loose, and makes me sound my best. And now I sound like trash. Like actual garbage. I sound like if a person had a throat made of garbage. which is too bad. That is too bad.
You've left the aura.
I left the aura. Okay. There we go, got it back. So, that is a shame, but it is also reality. Oh, thought I was crashing there. Didn't crash. Lucky me. So I need to find out if we have mold in the house and where it is. And you know what's funny about that? When I ordered the mold testing kit, they're just Petri dishes. That's it. Like, you know Petri dishes from school and like medical labs? The little dish full of jelly that grows bacteria and grows cultures. It's just that. You put a Petri dish in each room, and then after a few days you check it to see what kind of mold and fungus are growing, and then you check it. So that's cool. I'm pretty stoked about that. Pretty stoked about it, if I may say. I just need, if there's mold, I gotta get rid of it, because I'm constantly coughing, I'm constantly... I don't know, I expected something a little bit more, let's say, a little more refined than a Petri dish. Can I tell you, it's the same thing that, I'll tell you, when I had my nose broken in maybe 2013, 2014, and I went to the doctor to have my nose reset because it was broken, and the doctor, I'm sitting there for a little while, and the doctor walks in, he goes, "Whoa, you got a broken nose." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You want me to fix it for you?" And I said, he's clearly being funny. I said, "Well, yeah." And he goes, and he literally just, he was holding behind his back this big metal rod, this big thin metal rod, and he just pulls it out. And I said, "What are you gonna do with that? Are you gonna beat me to death with it?" He goes, "No, I'm gonna stick this in your nose and use it as leverage to reset your broken bone." And I was like, "No, like anesthetic or anything?" He goes, "You want anesthetic?" And I was like, I don't know. Is that an unreasonable thing to request? He goes, "You can have it if you want, but I don't think it's gonna help." And I was like, "Holy shit, dude!" And he goes, "Yeah, I know. You ready?" And I was like, "All right." And he just sticks it up into my nose, and then just like, not even like a crack, just like slowly moves my nose back across, and it hurt, yeah, but it didn't like ow hurt. It was just like, I could feel my nose moving across my face, and that was it. And then he just pulls it out and he goes, "All right, we're done." And I was like, "Yes, like pressure hurt, exactly, Robert, like pressure hurt." And I was like, "That's it?" He goes, "That's it, man." He goes, "What did you expect?" And I was like, I don't know. I expected something a little more high tech, like robots or, you know, lasers or something. He goes, "Nah." That's pretty damn funny. "Yeah, that'll be $10,000. No, actually, fun little fact about that visit to the doctor. I was a member of the Screen Actors Guild at the time, the Actors Union. But, look at all these people. I was a member of the Screen Actors Guild, but I didn't make enough money to qualify for Screen Actors Guild health insurance. So, I called up the union and I said, "Hey, like, guys, I gotta go in to have my nose, I need x-rays and I need my nose reset. I don't make enough to qualify for insurance. So, what are my options?" And they said, "Oh, we're glad you called. There's actually, it's called the Actors Fund, which is about as simple as you can get. It's like this, it's a fund that's sort of made up of partially of union dues to help you pay for simple things like an x-ray or whatever." So they sent me to this clinic that essentially gets kickbacks for doing that, and the x-ray and the nose reset cost me $20. I did have insurance at the time, because it was California and you had to have it at the time. I did have it, but it didn't really, like, it didn't affect it. It was just from this thing called the Actors Fund, which is very nice. It's like, thank you. You're doing what a union should do, which is help your members. You know, yeah, granted, I don't put a lot of money into the system. Brad Pitt puts a shit ton more in than I do, but it was nice that they had something for the rank and file. Anyway, that's just a fun little, I thought you guys might be interested in that fun little anecdote about, like, I was a poor starving actor and had my nose broken, and the guy reset it with like a tire iron. Because that's really what it was. It just looked like a tire iron. It's just funny. It's just funny. You expected a hammer to go with the rod? I mean, I was a little surprised that he wasn't using a hammer. It's kind of like leverage, but you look out the window and see the trunk he took it out of. Yeah, that was kind of funny. Like, I think that as children, like, I didn't grow up with the internet. The Facebook started when I was a sophomore in college. So Facebook started then. So like, I didn't grow up on the internet, but I was somebody where digital convenience was quick. Still, even as a young person and in college. So I think I just expected it to be more sophisticated. You know, like, I don't know. You don't expect to hear a professional and generally these days say, we can't really do that. It's like, everything's possible. This is the internet. They're like, nah, this is a metal rod up your nose. That's how you reset a bone. Like, the internet doesn't reset a bone for you. This doctor with a weird sense of humor and a metal rod, he resets a bone for you. Oh, I'll never forget too, like, I had 2 injuries at once. When my nose got broken, I was also recuperating from a workplace injury, where I had accidentally sliced open my palm on a bottle at work. I was restocking liquor bottles and one fell and it exploded and cut my hand open. So I was in physical therapy to have the tendon I severed repaired, have it healed. Oh no, Tim! So I was going to physical therapy to repair my hand when I got my nose broken. And the woman who was my physical therapist, who was, you know, repairing the tendon for me over time, she saw me come in with this broken nose, and she goes, "Oh no, not your nose!" And I laughed, and I said, "What?" She goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." She says, you have such a nice nose." You have such a nice nose. It's such a shame that it got broken. And I went, "Oh, thank you. I had never thought of my nose being broken." She says, "Oh yeah." She says, "Right when I turned 18, I got a nose job." And I went, "Oh, okay." She said, "Oh, it's just such a shame." I was like, this is peak LA. Not like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry you got your nose broken," but "Oh no, it's such a shame because you had such a nice nose." Anyway, it's kind of funny. Alright guys, so as soon as this match is over, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and I'm going to pull in our guests. Oh no, it wasn't insecurity. Like, I don't know, I thought I had a fine nose. There's nothing wrong with my nose. I think she brought up her own insecurity, but yeah, like, she could have, I don't know, it's just kind of funny. She did make me aware of it, yeah. But like, I found out over my time, I lived in LA for 13 years, I found out that like nose jobs are common in LA, like way more common than you might think. I'm taking life on kill just because, guys. I need to make it happen. I need to make life on kill a thing. So anyway, that was sort of that. That's a fun little anecdote. How I got my nose broken, how I got it reset, what I learned about insurance in LA, about doctors, about resetting bones. I also worked for my first job ever, by the way. I was 15 years old, and I worked for a local non-profit internet provider. They provided 56K dial-up modem speeds, and DSL at basically cheaper than cost because it was a non-profit and it was partially funded by donations and by stuff like that. So I was customer service there. My dad wanted me to have a job. I know I am showing my age there. I was 15, and my dad was like, "I'd like you to work here. You know, you can." He basically was like, "I want you to have a job during the summer, rather than just be a bum." He said, "So here's some jobs I think you should do," and I volunteered at that place. And 9 times out of 10, my job consisted of answering the phone and having some little old lady say, "Hello there, young man. I used your internet service, and well, I'm having a hard time getting it to connect properly." And I'd say, "Okay, man, well, Thank you for calling. I'm gonna have a little checklist of things to do here. Number one, is your modem powered on? Well, I'm not sure. There's a little light. There's a little light blinking on the front. Okay, is it green? Yes, sir. It is green. Okay, great. That's great news. All right, now what I'm gonna have you do is I'm gonna have you unplug the modem for about 30 seconds. Okay? Okay. Should I do that now? Yes, ma'am. You should do that now. Go ahead and unplug it. I'm not gonna drop our call, am I? No, ma'am. We're not on the same thing. It's okay. All right. I've unplugged it. Great. And then we'll talk for 30 seconds. Then I'll say, all right, ma'am. Now I'm gonna have you go ahead and plug your modem back in. All right. And then we go through that. No. All I wanted was the legendary axe. That's all I wanted. Well, it seems to be working now. I thought it might, ma'am. Well, you are just so wonderful. You just have a wonderful day. I will, ma'am. You too. That was my job, 9 times out of 10. 9 out of 10 calls. Now, buy Bogsy a gift card, yes. Now, I mean, the people who used that service were usually retirees, people who they couldn't afford full internet, so they were getting like dial-up for like $15 a month, basically. It was super cheap. Okay, so I'm going to get ready and swap over here to my guests. So let me see where they're at. Looks to me like they're ready. So let me see if I can hear them first. One moment. Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Hello, yeah, can you hear me?
There's Evan. Sasha, can you unmute yourself on Discord?
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hey! Yes, we can. Oh, there's a cat. Hi, cat. This is not your time, cat.
Cat.
Beat it. Anyway. Hi, guys. Okay, I'm very excited. Everybody, this is Sasha and Evan from the Manticore team. They've very kindly agreed to be here to chat about art, to chat about the process of basically things going from art to from idea to concept to drawing board to implementation, and then if we can, we might get all the way into what goes into actually filling it with stats and balancing it and all that. But we lost our third guest, so we might not get to all of that. So then, let's do this. First of all, Sasha, would you please introduce yourself, say hi, and let the audience there know what your role is at Manticore, what you generally do, and let's do it like summer camp. Maybe something fun about yourself.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm the art director of Out of Time. I've been at Manticore Games about 8 years. So from the early days of Core, I was environment art director, like lots of assets. If you're familiar with the Core, being produced by my team initially, but now like full on art directing the big game. Hopefully you're really enjoying playing it.
I certainly have been. What would you? So you've been working for Manticore for 8 years, and you're the art director here of Out of Time. So, can you give us something interesting about yourself, or something like that?
About myself, well, as far as I can remember myself, I always wanted to make games. At the time I was 7, I didn't know how to make games or where to go to study, but I heard the programmers are important, so I went to graduate. It was a computer science degree, but on the side I was exploring art and making art for the video games, and that artistic soul kind of took over. So I switched disciplines and been enjoying it ever since. Like, it's been about 18 years in the industry. I worked on lots of games, from PC to console to mobile, even web games. So there's a lot of cool things we've made in the past, and right now, game platform Core was the first thing to work on for me, like that type of software that allows you to build any game you want, plus multiplayer out of the box. That was really exciting. With all the team poured all their experience making games in a variety of engine into Core to make sure it's very simple, streamlined, and fun. And we actually built our Out of Time game in Core directly. That's what allowed us to make it fairly fast.
That's awesome.
Oh, sorry for a very long fact, but
no,
that's
no, don't be. Please don't be. So just one last question for you before we move on to Evan. You mentioned that you got a degree in computer science, and then you said about some point in there you switched and you moved over because you wanted to do more art. Can I ask, do you feel like the computer science degree was still helpful or even
Absolutely.
necessary in order to be able to make that move and then land in the position that you have, which is working on games?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's super helpful. It shaped me as a person, as a professional, the way I think, the way I approach things. I'm very technical. And I think it also helped me a lot during the initial core development because I was able to prototype my own games, like code my games as well as, you know, push that aspect of the development by providing feedback and also remembering the good old days of coding.
Yeah.
It was very fun.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that. Evan, we move on to you, sir. How are you?
But doing great. Yeah, I'm glad Sasha mentioned that because I was going to say that Sasha's incredibly brilliant as far as like not just being artistically talented, but also like very, very educated and helped me along the way just to understand so much. So, but yeah,
Okay.
like yeah, of course. And I'm Evan. I'm the lead character artist at Manticore. I've been with Manticore for almost 6 years now, so a little bit less time than Sasha, but I did sort of involve myself very early on with the core process when we made core, and yeah, now I mostly guide the mobs, weapons, and all of our gear, cosmetic elements that we use for our mix and match gear set. So,
Well, we're gonna have questions for you, buddy.
yeah,
And
let them rip.
you and I were having a fun time chatting before the stream, just sort of talking about, having moved around a whole bunch, and we were talking about the pandemic and stuff like that. So, give us a little something about yourself that shapes our view of Evan a bit.
Well, I was gonna say that like one of my most recent like passions is doing like manufacturing and woodworking. So
No kidding.
I'm lucky enough to have a wood shop where I live and do a lot of CNC wood carvings and things like that. I do rotary figurines and stuff. So
Oh
I'll
wow.
actually sculpt those characters in ZBrush and then turn them into wood, which is one step up from 3D printing maybe. So
That's super cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. One of my best friend. I grew up in Oregon, and my best friend, he does woodworking there as well, and he's really like every time I go back home to visit, he shows me what he's been working on. It just gets better and better each time. So super cool to hear that.
yeah, Oregon's a great place to do that.
I can imagine. There's a lot of wood in Oregon. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're gonna move on now to. I set up this new window. There we go. We're gonna start by observing some of the. I selected about 12 images here that we're gonna talk about as we go through here. You guys should have the list 1, 2, 3, all the way to 12. So here's what we're gonna do. Basically, I'm gonna start with. I gotta find all the. Gotta find all the pieces. There we go. First one. So the first one here is a concept art piece of the biome for the Wastelands era. So Sasha, I'm going to ask you first. Give us an idea of what stage of development a picture like this is created and what for. Would you please?
Sure. Yeah, this usually happens at the concept phase, like even before we started any prototyping or white boxing of the levels, right? It was designed to sit down and talk about what type of zones we want to create for the era, what type of goal we're trying to achieve, or trying to like all sorts of descriptions of references at this point being gathered from creative departments, design department. We start researching. So I mean, Wasteland is our version of post-apocalyptic world, right? What happened to humanity due to some nuclear or natural disaster. And one of the areas is Trash Town. And we wanted to show that there's this group of people that maybe didn't want to live behind the wall in the last standing city, and they created their own little alcove from all the trash they could have gathered around the disasters, right? And initially they've built it on top of a volcano. That's why you see a lot of this kind of triangular structures that quite aggressive looking. And yeah, I mean, this is just, you see throughout a lot of remnants of the cyberpunk society because there are a lot of neon and a lot of tech. But also you can tell based on the torches and whatnot that they might have discovered some sort of oil resources or some sort of other natural energy and harvesting it. So Yeah,
I
that's a
love
backstory.
already. I love the idea of you can talk so much about what's involved in it because, sorry, what I mean to say is like just by describing what you're describing here, we can already hear how much thought and how much backstory and how much creativity goes into something like this, which then you will see that sort of thing. I want to say it like a downstream effect where it will trickle out, the lore and the backstory will trickle out into all the smaller little things. If you go, well, we had this thought that they built it on a volcano, that's why it's sort of shaped up. That's super cool to hear. Evan, I know you work on characters mostly and weapons and outfits and stuff like that, so I don't mean to skip you on this one, but I think it'll lead well into the second image. So
Yeah, absolutely.
so this is not related to Wasteland, of course, but the next image is going to be something familiar to all of you who've played Out of Time. Here we have the Ent. That's the baby Ent mob, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Baby Ant's definitely one of my like favorite designs that we ended up putting into the game. And this image is kind of cool. It actually gives you a little insight into some of the thought processes that we had for some of our mobs. We wanted initially for some of them to kind of feel like they were more mimics, or they were an object that lived in the world that you weren't necessarily sure about, and you would go up to them and emerge. And through the gameplay mechanic, you don't necessarily get that as much, but you kind of get to see that here in the concept phase.
That's really
When we
interesting.
design and when we design these things, we think a lot about silhouette and how to make them read well in the context that they're going to be used. And you can actually see in like the fourth shot of the baby tree ant, it has all these crazy vines coming out, which is something we did have initially, and it was really cool in a singular context. But whenever you turned it into this more vampire survivor wave style game, it ended up just being absolutely crazy and just way too much going on screen. So we cut that, but it was a really cool feature of the design initially. So
That is
yeah, it's like
interesting. So
a little spirit.
maybe Sasha, given Sasha's position, maybe she could explain a little bit about. Evan alluded to the idea that originally there had been ideas of what something like this baby Ent mob should be doing. It should be in these multiple states of action or states of inaction. And then eventually, it turns out, no, based on what the game is going to be, it doesn't need to have that many different states. Let's just say that. So at what point did you guys feel like maybe this isn't necessary, but we're glad we have all these sort of things? Here's what we're going to go with. Where does that come in?
Yeah, I mean, through game development process, you often prototype different type of gameplay mechanics, right? Initially, we wanted some of our mobs, since we have a gathering system in place, to be mimics. And kind of when you're trying to approach as a stump, is that a mushroom, a rock, kind of spook you and attack you. But as we experimented in context of our more kind of action-packed hordes gameplay, it was not working really well, because you would expect just enemies approach you, like encroach you from all sorts of direction, and this individual encounters was not working as well. And that's why we had to simplify a little bit, and like Evan said, like lose certain features of the design itself, like those vines and the ability to become a mimic. We really liked it. But maybe in a different gameplay mode, if we decide to introduce later, they could make a comeback.
Sure. It's great to know that the concept is there no matter what. So one last question about this before we move on, which is, I'm so curious because I already saw somebody in the chat mention that it reminds them of Baby Groot. It reminds me a lot of the the Deku. I can't remember whether they're a species but like the Deku bad guys from Legend of Zelda. Like, I feel like I'm familiar with things. It's its own thing, obviously, but did it have any inspiration from things that you guys can recall?
I think that like typically anytime you do something like Groot definitely comes to mind, especially with the shape. I think this one had a little bit of a sort of Princess Mononoke sort of inspired idea with this. It's more of like a spirit that's inhabiting this tree stump rather than it being a literal ant that has come to life. I mean, we always have called it the baby tree ant, or like a tree ant golem baby.
Yeah.
But in the design, you can sort of see that there's like this sort of black creature that's living inside of it, and I guess bringing it to life. So
like it's inhabited or possessed by something almost.
Yeah. But yeah, Groot is absolutely something. Anytime we've done any sort of treant thing, we reference that as from other games as well as from the movies. So
Very cool. I mean, it's funny. Just even the name Ent. I know the name is a long. It's like it's an old name, but even that reminds me, of course, of the Ents from the Lord of the Rings. Lord of the
yeah,
Rings series. So
Treebeard.
Treebeard. That's right. I was trying to think of
I just wanted to add to that.
what's that?
Sorry. I just wanted to add to that like I mean in a bit you're gonna show the actual large ant, right? And
Yes.
for us it's often important if two mobs are meant to be a set, so they feel like they come from the same area or same family or something. And I think that's also important for either modelers or concept artists when they're designing to incorporate certain elements so they feel like they belong to each other.
Hmm.
Like is that the same type of like shape of the leaf or the colors or something like that?
Well, we can actually skip right to that, so you guys can see what Sasha's talking about here. I'm gonna skip. One. There we go. So this would be the boss. I don't remember which boss this is. I think it might actually be the first boss. Is the one I was just fighting in game a minute ago.
I believe it's the one that's in the Riverlands. Yeah, so
Riverlands.
you'll encounter it after you do the first time user experience, the tutorial level. If you
Okay.
choose, I guess if you choose, you don't have to choose to go to that map at first. But if you do, you would run into this one first.
Right. So this is our first boss. This is what we're going to talk about. We have a couple bosses, just because the bosses are so unique and interesting that. So moving off of the baby ant mob, can you tell us a little bit? First, let's talk just a little bit about how you guys go about deciding on what the boss should be, if you can. Maybe Sasha should start with this, and we'll go to Evan. How you guys determine what the boss should be, how much the mobs and the bosses sort of intertwine, and which one do you start with? Do you start with the boss and then build the mobs out from that, or do you start with the mobs and then have the boss be sort of a natural progression of that? What do you think?
Yeah, I think often era and the theme so that inspires and creates a direction for us. Like since this boss was designed for medieval era, obviously huge inspiration in all the high fantasy stuff, and Lord of the Rings is no exception. And we know it will be in the deep woods or like some heavily wooded area, so it must have some sort of wood appearance to it. And yeah, our concept artists did a great job exploring all sorts of shapes, and we settled on this one. And as a boss, I mean, it needs to be big. It's very important, right? Ideally, it's a bigger, maybe 2 to 3 times bigger than the character, so it feels menacing. Yeah, that's the general kind of thought process.
That's very cool. So Evan, when you folks, of course, in character design, when you are sort of given when you're given that directive from above, here's the theme, here's the zone, here's the era, these are the things we're working with. What do you guys go about? I mean, where do you start with that sort of information? Can you walk us through that process a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in general, the process that we tend to go through is we will block in the silhouette of the model roughly and loosely. We always start with something that's loose that guides general proportions and shape first. And we try to get that into a state where we can see it in context as soon as possible. Because seeing something in context is a really big part of game development for game assets in general. You can often make something out in a digital content package on another side, like Maya or something, for instance, and not be able to necessarily fully understand like how it's going to feel in game, what it's going to look like in game. So we start with a very loose model. We get it skinned and rigged and animated and sort of moving around so that we can get a sense of, oh, this is going to work. All of our assumptions that we made during the concept phase are now actually coming to life. And we might iterate at that point. We might make a few changes here or there. Tends to be that it mostly carries over, but we do occasionally have to make some alterations. And then from there, we just continue to refine from large shapes to small shapes until we get something that's the final asset.
Sure. That's interesting. Can you give us an example? I know I'm putting you on the spot. Can you give us an example of when you've had to make a refinement where you started with something and you kind of go, ooh, okay, based on this emergent sort of reality, now we have to take it back and we have to change something?
Yeah, I mean, we can sort of also pivot to one of the other images, the smelter bot, which is another boss that we did.
Sure.
That was a good example because the initial concept, the proportions are pretty much what you see in game. However,
There we go. The smelter bot is this fella, right?
Yep.
Image number 4.
Right. I'm actually not looking at the stream. So yeah,
That's
number
okay.
4.
Image number 4. I should just give you the image number.
Yeah.
Being a good host.
Yeah. So we basically just had to rearrange the components that were there. All the components basically stayed the same, but we did have to adjust like the size of the torso element and where the head was coming from and how big that smelting pot on the top is. We also have to make sure that like the arm lengths are correctly are at the correct length so that they actually can do the motions that we want to do once it gets rigged. So a lot of those tend to be the things that we adjust most of the time. I can't think of anything right offhand where it was a large visual change that we had to make to the design.
Mm-hmm.
That does happen, but it's typically mostly just proportional things that change.
So I'll throw this out to both of you, and you guys can decide who wants to pick this one up. Smelter bot is very interesting looking, and there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of different pieces, and there's a lot of, I want to call them, sort of just dynamic points. My brain thinks back to hard points when I'm just going to brag about myself here for a second. Back when I was in high school, I played a game called Star Trek Armada 2, and it was a very simple game, and you could mod it a little bit, and the only modeling interaction I had was there were hard points put on the ships, and you could interact with those hard points. You could put weapons and stuff on them. It feels like this has a lot of very interesting hard points and sort of axes of variables. So when you get something like this, I don't even know what the request was when it comes to, hey, so we're looking for a giant semi-robotic sort of almost like a giant crab that has the face of some sort of ancient king. It has 6 arms and 2 giant shovel scoops for hands. What? I don't know which one of you wants to take this, but how on earth do you go for, how do you concept this?
Yeah, I could start and Evan can add
Okay.
if I missed anything. But I think initial requests usually way more vague than that. Like it's usually, okay, you guys have a dwarven area, and we know dwarves are engineers and they're doing a lot of mining activities. So what if we create some sort of automaton mobs, and it needs to be huge? Like, all right, that's general requests we get, and which is great because we can be very creative from this point, right? We can start our research, see in like what other people were doing for dwarves, and just building on top of that and making something truly unique that nobody have done before, at least to this degree. And also as a boss, it is a requirement that they have set of movement that is like they repeating throughout their cycle as they're attacking you. And the more you give them, the more tools you give them, like is that a huge shovels, is it some sort of smelter on top that can spew lava or whatever, the more freedom for design to really add variety to the gameplay. And at this point, our concept artists are gold. I mean, they just go in and start trying all sorts of crazy ideas. There is no limit right now, right? Like we want you to throw as wide a net as possible. And from that, we start picking the best ideas and just assembling that in this like uber creature and refining in terms of like, is that even possible to build? Like, are we gonna exceed the poly count, or it's gonna be so complex to animate that it's gonna take forever or something? And then it goes to Evan's department that they really tell us what's possible.
Okay, perfect transition. Thank you very much for that, Sasha. Evan, when sometimes they'll send you something, you go, dude, this is...
Yeah.
Like, bro, do you even poly count? So when you get a request like this, which is so interesting, what are some of the main considerations for you guys? Obviously, Sasha mentioned that they're dreaming up ways for you to be able to like kind of easily input different movements and different attacks, because those are things that have to be repeated. So when you get something like this, what are your, I don't want to ask what are your limitations, but what are your immediate sort of, okay, we need to keep, here are the boundaries, here's what we need to do. How do you keep it all contained?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, so in general, I'm involved in the process whenever the concepts are sort of being created. So I get the opportunity to provide suggestions at that phase where, well, maybe this isn't going to work or whatever. But I'm trying to think as much like the animator as I possibly can, even though I don't necessarily do the animation. But from my job, it will move into rigging and then it will move into animation. So when I look at something, especially as crazy as the smelter bot, which is a crazy idea that came from one of our concept artists, Aaron Shea. When we first saw it, we was like, "That's pretty fun. Like, it's crazy. That's going to be a little bit difficult. It's going to have some problems potentially, but we like the idea. It feels very unique and different, and you can also see what it could do. Like, you could see from the design like what its abilities are. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying before with like proportions and making sure that things can move. I'm thinking about where the joints, like the physical joints mechanically, where it can pivot from. That's why you kind of see those slots that are open in the chest. We sort of had to kind of go through multiple iterations with the concept team to sort of decide, okay, well, is it going to pivot from here? And like, well, there's a pauldron element there that's sort of on that arm. Is that going to clash whenever the character lifts it up? And so penetrations and proportions and where things pivot from. On a more organic thing, you tend to think more about the anatomical structure of it and how it would move mechanically as well. So even though it's an organic versus a highly mechanical thing, they have a lot of the same principles around their mechanical motion that you have to think about. So
sure,
that's
I
kind
mean,
of what it
stop
is.
me if I'm wrong, but you probably operate in the sense of you can bend the rules, but you can't fully break them, because if you fully break them, it stops tracking with reality and it breaks people's immersion. Would you say that's fair?
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We try to do what we can to not break immersion. Obviously, it is a video game, and there are some things that you just kind of have to live with, or certain
Yes.
clashing and crashing and collisions and characters walk into walls and stuff all the time. But we try to avoid that when we can and try to make smart decisions.
Star Wars, yes, it's about people, it's about space wizards in space with laser swords. We're aware of that,
Yeah.
but if they
There's some
start
suspension of disbelief. You have to
if
come
they
to the
just
door
start
with.
flying, then we're like, okay, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
funny how that works, isn't it? Well, okay, that's a lot to know about the smelter bot. Thank you both for weighing in on that. And truly, it is such an interesting design. And I love the fact that this literally it will throw smelted ore or some sort of purple metal at you. That's one of its attacks. So that is really cool to see how it actually came about. There's one more boss to take a look at, so maybe we'll just go ahead and take a look at that. This is I don't remember what his name is, but it looks like an iron golem. It's made out of a furnace or something like that. So this looks very similar to, in sort of concept, to the, I guess, the Ent boss or the Earth Golem. I don't know all the actual like kind of concept names behind them, so forgive me. So, chat, you might have to help me out. I can't remember which boss this is. Is this? This is.
These actually show up in contexts where they're not always bosses.
Oh, that's right.
They often show up as elites, but this is a kind of an interesting concept in game design. You often want to skin something that shares the same skeleton. So the tree ant, the ent character, the large boss ent, the primordial ent, whatever we're calling it, and the iron golem, both of them have the exact same identical skeleton, so that they can share animation logic.
Right.
Yeah, and so when we designed both of those, or basically the whole set of different golems that you see in the game, they all kind of had to share that same mentality of form and proportion, but trying to make them as unique from each other within those parameters. So.
Right. So someone in chat pointed out that this is the boss for the industrial zone, but you also reminded us that this is an elite in the, I think it's the last zone of the medieval era. Is that right, or is that a different golem?
You definitely see them in the Riverlands for sure, and I believe they're in a few other waves.
Yes,
but I can't keep it straight in my head.
That's okay. I'm going to geek out for a second. I'm pretty sure that in the fourth zone of Overgrown. That's it. Thank you, Smasham. In Overgrown Fortress.
Overgrown Village.
Overgrown Village. Man. Yeah, when you sort of run through the front gate into the village, you'll see several of them will spawn and come after you. So I actually didn't realize that those are the golems. Okay. Well, that's pretty darn cool. I want to move. We're making good time here, so let's move right along to, before we fully leave the. I want to get back to the Nope, one more. There we go. Nope, not that one. There we go. I got it. I'm a professional. These are the huts as part of the biome for Past Wilds, which I'm pretty sure is. Are these in the Dark Forest or are these in Riverlands? I can't remember. I think they're Dark Forest.
Dark Forest, yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, because the little rope bridges are what I recall when you enter the village, and you're running around on the platforms. So, I think I'll start with Sasha if that's okay. These are super fun, and I'm curious to know like what is the process between dreaming these up and then actually implementing them into playable landscape.
I mean, it's always goal when it's possible to create environments not only beautiful but also believable, right? And our goal was for here because we already designed a set of swamp creatures and we wanted to create their habitat. Do they just live in water? That was kind of boring. I was like, what if we create a little village for them that's built from, stick and ivy and other things they could find lying around. And again, to set up dress up the place, you don't want to use just one house and stamp it around, right? Again, to create that believable effect. Some families are small, maybe living in a smaller house, and there's a chief, and he lives in a much bigger one. So that's where the variety comes from. And the rule of thirds, it's often perfect. You go like small, medium, large.
Mama bear, baby bear, daddy bear.
Yeah. Pretty much, and you start layering additional details. So they hunt a lot, so that's why you see the tusks and different things incorporated in the design. But also we wanted, like the whole deep forest is very whimsical and mysterious and weird. So we put some designs that resembles the eyes on the roof, so to add to that mystery and sense of craziness, and I think it's really helped. Plus torches.
That's so interesting, and you're right. That makes it so much more dynamic and deep. If when you're thinking you've dreamt up some creeps, some mobs to run through every time, but then you go, well, where do these guys live, and what do they do, and what would they do? Well, they would make their villages out of essentially what's around, so they would shape their environment to suit their needs, and then they would probably decorate it with things that they have at hand or things that they acquire. So whatever they hunt, they'll probably use the tusks, like you said, or they'll take eyes and things like that, have trophies, have sort of display for prestige. That's so interesting. That's very cool. Evan, is the actual modeling of these landscapes, is that something that you and your department do, or is there a whole separate group for landscapes?
There's an entire environment team, which I was a part of for a number of years whenever I first started here at Manticore. But I just sort of mostly focus on the character stuff now. But I mean, we did build these fairly early on. I think I was actually still on the environment team when we started implementing the first versions of these things in the worlds. We often build kits in order to generate this content. So like we might build like a set of ladders or a set of stairways or a lantern that we repurpose and move around, and that's a common thing you find in all game level art. You just recycling the same things, copying, repurposing, moving around, rotating them so that you can get as much use case out of every prop as you possibly can.
Can I make a parallel? So that's exactly what, when you're building an OBS overlay for a stream, that's exactly what you do for the overlay as well. Like somebody, whomever on the Manticore team generated the original Out of Time stream overlay, they did something incredible, which is they built it as an Adobe file that has all these different little parts that you could check and uncheck essentially to make up what you want. And so having picked that up, they did a huge amount of work for me. So whenever I want to change something, I open the file, save it as a new one, and then I move around things for my own needs, and then save it as an image and export it. So it's similar to that degree, but that's a really efficient way of making sure that you get something cool and dynamic and lets people sort of paint, as you will. They can paint the environment with parts. It's almost like building Legos in a way.
I mean, not to dwell back onto core, but that is sort of the whole premise behind the core engine that people can still create games with. Like we have an entire library of just mini game assets that anybody could come in and just manipulate, move them around however they want, repurpose them, rematerialize them. So this concept of modular parts is a theme that has sort of permeated Manticore sculptures since the beginning. So,
And that is very cool. All righty. Well, I'm talking for too long. I'm getting stuck on things, so I'm gonna go ahead and move up to, let's see here. Next should be the guitar. So Sasha, I'm going to ask you to start with this because this does look like it's pretty early in the drafting phase. But we're into weapons and characters now. So I know Evan will have plenty to say, so we'll start with Sasha. This is, can you sort of talk to us about how the evolution of a piece of equipment comes along?
Well, I mean, with anything new, we would start with the same process. Like we always research first, and then just knowing the requirements from design, what exactly does this weapon needs to do, and also knowing the theme, how we can fit that weapon with that theme. And since it's wasteland, right, it's all about mutants and like scraps that lying around. Like, can we make something that looks like it's been put together from everything they can find in the wasteland? Even some organic parts. And that's why like we took a little different approach here. We wanted to push the weirdness of the organic, maybe even grossness a little bit. Here you can see some, I don't know even how to describe it. That Evan could
Is there,
in here.
are there organic parts on here? Have I just not realized it?
yeah, well, since it's a flame guitar, and we were trying to think of a fun and interesting way that it could throw flame in a wasteland scenario. And so obviously you could like strap a tank of gas or something to it, but we thought it would be sort of more interesting if there was some sort of crazy mutanoid like pustule stuff that you found in the wasteland, some toxic sludge, and you energize it with these like electric cores, and that's what's producing this sort of crazy fire. Yeah, so that was, I think, the impetus for that. And we were also talking about Rick and Morty whenever we were thinking about that, because
Yeah.
it's a really fun wasteland episode that has these kind of creepy creature things and stuff. So maybe I was just the only one thinking of Rick and Morty.
No, not at all. Like, so when I first saw the guitar and some of the wasteland gear in general, I mean, obviously my first thought is Mad Max, the sort of post-apocalyptic barren wasteland is, you know, it's well loved. And the original Mad Max films, they spawned so many, I want to say, movies and films and even games and stuff like that afterwards, just based off the sheer creativity and the openness of that genre. But like, the next thing that came up to me was the Rick and Morty episode, just because stuff feels gross in the Rick and Morty episode. Like, it does feel like a mishmash of sort of post-apocalyptic organic, and so I definitely see it there. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've seen that episode, but I just, as a little anecdote, one of the funniest things is like, I think later Summer marries like the chief warlord, and then it like the episode ends on basically the two of them settling down for a domestic life. And,
yeah.
Like,
teaches them about electricity, and they domesticate.
that's right, and then they become boring, miserable,
Yep.
domestic couple. Yeah. Well, that's pretty darn cool. So, with regards to, let's just ask, because it's the guitar, let's talk about the abilities. And I know we were originally hoping to have Misa available to talk about, like, okay, how do you draft abilities out of these cool models and out of these cool concepts? So, would one of you be able to actually talk about, now that we have the model, how do we best make use of it in terms of abilities?
Yeah, I can kind of go through that a little bit.
Thank you.
So initially, usually it comes from our like main creative director, sort of an initial guide around what we want to do for the big picture of the abilities. This one is obviously Mad Max themed. You know, a lot of us are into old 80s movies and that kind of stuff. So that kind of experience and that kind of reference material always creeps in. And so we get an initial pitch, we get a kind of structure of what it is that we want to do for these abilities, not necessarily like set in stone. And then we typically, with Misa, we'll set up a brainstorm meeting. So we'll kind of have a document. It'll have sort of what we're thinking, outline, some images and stuff that we've pulled from either pre-existing art or things that we're going to make in the future, some reference material. And then we'll have a big meeting with kind of the whole design team and the art team, and anybody who's got ideas is free to share and free to kind of express those ideas and try to pitch them, and then we take those ideas. Or they take those ideas and then they decide what we should do because too many chefs in the kitchen is a problem. So
Certainly,
obviously
somebody has to be the final voice so that
yeah.
we know who to blame if it goes wrong, right?
Exactly. And so that's why Sasha's here. Sasha's here to blame. No, I'm just kidding. No, Sasha and Jordan Maynard did kind of the two sort of final decisions, and as well as our like lead designers, so Misa and Ryan.
Sure. Okay, excellent. Well then, I have to ask, how did you guys come up with Rock Concert, the finale, like the ultimate abilities to sort of say it that way? It's gonna be a rock concert, and it's gonna, where you point your guitar during the concert will have an added effect. Like, who says this is what we're gonna do?
I think that just sort of like bubbled up like naturally based off of the idea. Like it was very much Mad Max Fury Road, the guy with the mask like blowing flame guitars and the giant speakers in the background, that sort of made this character be something that we wanted to do. And because of that, it was, obviously because it's a musical instrument, that's why it's sending out these notes and doing damage that way and stuff. So I think it was a pretty natural process for this one, to my memory, anyways. So
the unofficial mascot of Fury Road definitely is the blind flame guitar guy strapped to a couple bungees for sure.
Yeah, and it's such a cool image. It's hard to not want to pull from that.
And I mean,
so.
you're not wrong. And the way that you guys came up with your own take on that is fantastic. And I think it's part of the reason why people like it so much. It's cool. It's bizarre. It's cool, and it's fun.
It's cool. It's recognizable, but it's also different. And
yeah. All right. So then let's move. Oh, I'm sorry, Sasha. Go ahead.
I just want to say, like, often some ideas born through iterations, like they might be slightly different idea, but when you play it through the game, it's like, actually, it's not enough. We want more over-the-top action, and let's try something else. And maybe on the third iterations, you get closer and closer from your initial pitch, right? And
did it
I
start as
a but it could have been the case.
Did it start as a flaming saxophone? Is that what you're trying to say?
Very possible. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. All right. Moving on to characters. So this is the dragon set. This is the dragon set full of the full dragon armor, the helm, the weapon. Well, actually, I don't think the weapon's featured just here, but all of the gear pieces besides the weapon are right here. So needless to say, this is one of the community's favorite, not only because you literally get to turn into a dragon, but really, really cool stuff here. And so I have a couple questions to start off with. One, did this entire thing come because somebody just said, well, we have to be able to turn into a dragon? That's a must. You have to be able to turn into a dragon. That's the first question.
Eventually, right? I think initially it was a beast hunter, right? From what I remember. Like, we want some very cool gear set for the beast hunter. No mention of the abilities. And we went in and what are the best games to have the greatest gear made of beasts and monsters? It's Monster Hunter, right? We looked a lot at their gear sets and how they made, and I think that's what's very cool about their gear sets. They feel like they made up the parts from different monsters that you defeated on the battlefield, right? And we went with that idea. Plus, one of the silhouette sketches were resembling samurai kind of armor. And we really like that. We like the helmet with some sort of fake hair bits and also the silhouette of this armor bits on the sides and the red, black kind of aggressive palette. So we went with it and started incorporating a lot of elements from different, dragons and different monsters.
Okay.
And it's one of the things when the design, I think, by looking at that, was so inspired. They came out with ideas like, what if you turn in a dragon and start like doing that?
All right, so that's how it came about. So
I think the fact that it has a dragon skull is probably where like, it needs to have something dragon themed, and it's got the dragon flaming wing. And we had a dragon sort of sitting around in storage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, so then, can I ask, because you did bring it up, so I want to harp on it, which is, do you feel like there was a specific sort of style of dragon that, or a genre of dragon, or some sort of, I don't want to use the word IP because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but like, obviously there's lots of different, iterations of dragons throughout pop culture history and whatnot. So, can I ask what were some of the ones that inspired the look of the actual dragon that comes from the ability, but also of the armor?
Well, I know that so I actually wasn't a part of the design for this one because it's a little bit older than my time on the character team. But I can say that Deathwing is definitely one of the primary inspirations for like the jaw shape, right? Like you have
Ah.
that very squared off, almost metallic shape to the teeth and the jaw. But obviously it's a lankier dragon and it has wait, I think it originally wasn't going to be bone armor, but bone just sort of made sense because of the design of the cosmetic. So we went towards the bone idea because of that. So I don't think there was any specific IP that we directly referenced when we made that, but just dragons at large, I guess, from all sorts of games and
Pastiche.
IPs. Pastiche.
Pastiche. Excellent. Okay. Well,
A patchwork of dragon ideas, I guess.
I mean, I will tell you that when I was first starting the game and I got the dragon armor and realized I could turn into a dragon, I don't think I changed my armor for several weeks because I was like, well, I could use something that's higher quality now, but then I can't turn into a dragon. And that's a problem. So
It is.
that is a problem. Okay, moving on to another gear set. This one is going to be the post-apocalypse barbarian. I forget what the actual.
Internally, we call this the Renegade, but I'm not actually sure. I don't actually know what the gear set name is called.
Well, this is the. Stop me if I'm wrong. This is Alpha Andes, right? Is the name of the set?
Yeah,
Because
Alpha
it has
Andes.
the buff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, needless to say, I think the part that sticks out to people the most about this is the repair bot, the heal bot.
Yeah,
Which is
it's not actually belong to this class, but that is an interesting aspect. The Renegade here was originally designed with this cool robot character backpack, because we thought it would be a fun sort of scavenging type idea, like you're a wasteland character. This is very archetypical Mad Max sort of design, right? With like the shoulder pad and the tire and the license plates and stuff. So it was imagined mostly as a scrapper idea. But the idea for the Death Wheel that came out from kit bashing, I believe, like just trying to come up with a really fun vehicle idea. And that was just so cool that we actually ended up replacing the backpack to represent the Death Wheel with that wheel that has the chains wrapped around it and the sort of armor piece on top.
right.
But we also always wanted to use this robot because it's awesome. So it ended up being a part of the Cyborg set, which is also a scrapper class. So it actually made a little bit more sense to reuse it. So
That does make sense. We had I don't know if you guys got to see it, but a while back we held a fan art contest, and someone who should be in the chat right now is a player named Zayev. Zayev made. Let me see if I can show it real quick.
huge fan. Yeah, there's
Hey!
all four more are up there. So.
Huge fan. Great to hear. We love that. I'm gonna add a source super quick here, and then I'm gonna call it Zayev, and then we're going to find Zayev's. We're going to find Zayev's fan art drawing. This was the very first one. Oh, I made it way too big. All right, hold on 1 second. Way too big. That was really high resolution. All right, and then boop. You guys should be able to see it there now on the stream. Zayev made some fan art of the repair bot trying to heal a dead raccoon, since the raccoons are one of the early enemies that stuck out as holy crap, I think I just got wasted by the raccoons.
Yeah.
Holding the get well soon
So
balloons.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite piece.
We were all
Yeah,
very
although all
impressed.
the drones are pretty great, but yeah, I think I love the fact that it's like barfing the heal spell too, which is it's not what it does in the game, but actually now I was like, yeah, maybe we should have made it barf the heal.
I know. Like
Pretty
it's
great.
like the raccoon has been knocked out. The bot is barfing, which is kind of a violent act of bleh, but it's barfing healing, which is is a paradox. And then it's holding the little balloons that say get well soon, like a good little minion. Like there's a lot going on there. Well done, Zayev.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, incredible
Well,
piece.
well done. All right. So that's the Renegade. So let's move on to our first piece of Solar Punk, which is oh man, I had the name. I think it's the Solar Warrior is the item set. So This is the gear. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Evan.
No, sorry, the Solar Sentinel, I think, is what.
Solar Sentinel.
I
That's
could be
right.
wrong.
So this is one of the new gear sets that's coming out with Solarpunk. And this is the Solar Sentinel. And here you can see, basically, I would say the armor and the armor, the helm, and the boots are what are available here. So we don't want to give too much away about Solarpunk because we're trying to make sure we keep some. We don't want to give all of it away before the launch of it. But I have to say, when I was seeing this, it reminds me so much of. It's not exactly, so it might be a stretch, but it reminds me of Frieza's minions in Dragon Ball Z. I was waiting for a big smile on their faces. Okay, if you guys remember the sort of those panels and the armor, the little gold.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, you could see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that at all an inspiration, or am I making this shit up?
No, I don't think so. I don't believe that was an inspiration for it, but I can see where you're picking that up from.
So I'm not crazy.
The lines, the vertical lines and stuff. So.
Yeah, okay. Well, so for the Solarpunk, maybe this is a good opportunity to just. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to transition here to. I'd like to know what you two have to say about punking something. What I mean by that is, obviously, most people have heard the term steampunk. I feel like that was the punk that originated the concept of punking something, whereby, well, I won't say what I think. I'll wait till you guys. But Solarpunk is obviously our own brand of punking. So first, I'd like to know what each of you thinks it means to punk something, to something punk it. And then I'd like to first just do that, and then afterwards we'll ask each one of you how you feel like we have solar punked, how that sort of, what that means for ours. So maybe we'll have Sasha go this time first. What does it mean to punk something, Sasha?
Very interesting question. I think from initially what I read, it's all about decentralizing something in the solar punk society. Was like energy, right? And that's why our characters wearing some sort of solar panels so they can harness solar energy and be independent and produce that on their own. And we try to incorporate that in all our designs. Is it buildings? Is it gear sets? Is it gatherable or something like that? But it's a very new concept for me, punkifying something. So still learning. But that's one of the things.
Had you heard about like steampunk, for example, before this?
Yeah, but I don't think I never dived into details why it's called this way, or cyberpunk. Why is there? What?
I hadn't either, to be completely honest with you. We had an interesting conversation about it, I think, yesterday. But Evan, what does it mean to punk something? And I'm not talking Ashton Kutcher punking. Yes, I'm that old. I remember.
We did sort of like have to look up the definition to fully understand it, but it is interesting. And solar punk's not necessarily something new, but it is one of the lesser known punks because I think it also sort of breaks the rules of what a punk is, like cyberpunk and steampunk. It tends to be about like dissension and sort of a dystopian aspect to it. But solarpunk is the complete opposite. It's about the utopia aspect, and maybe there is some dystopian elements, and that might be some things that you might see because there are elements of sort of like how do you get to that utopia that gets a question that is answered, and you might see some things that sort of have an omnipresent eye floating around, and that's all I'll say.
That's not. That sounds exactly like my vision of the utopia. An all-seeing eye floating around, watching me all the time.
Right. So yeah, you kind of wonder how you got to that utopia in order. But yeah, the solarpunk in general tends to be personified by there's lots of foliage and beautiful clean surfaces, and because it's the harmony that mankind has met with technology. Like they're no longer producing. No longer producing dirty fuel or anything like that, so everything's clean, and so we do lean into that, like what is powering this thing. So you can see here visually that these purple elements are solar panels, right? So very on the nose, like it is the sun's power, but there are other things that you'll see that are of a different type of powering generation system, things like geothermal, things like water, things like that. So
sure, sort of a. It's more bioengineered, not through flesh, but more like through, like you said, through energy means that are not the consumption of. Yeah, I think I get what you're saying there. Okay, and when you guys were, then maybe this is a question for both of you. When you were dreaming up solar punk, then you alluded to a little bit of it already, Evan. The notion of, well, okay, if punk sort of means generally speaking, means the decentralization of order, and we discussed it a little bit where if you think of steampunk, it feels like, well, we have these tools, which is steam energy usually because it's steam. Assuming you're limited by energy creation through steam or something like that, but everything is mechanical and everything feels sort of clapped together from different things. How do you go about sort of turning that into? Maybe that's too broad. What kind of consideration goes into, okay, then in that case, we want to make these types of gear sets. We want to have this type of abilities, that sort of thing. How do you take that punk concept and then go, okay, we're going to try and go this direction?
You go, Sasha.
Maybe that was too many questions.
Well,
Yeah, I wish someone from design was here, like to get.
yeah,
that's fine.
I think what I said though is essentially what we did. Like we thought about how in a solar punk society you make energy, and that tend to be the like pillars that we decided for these sets. So obviously because this is a solar panel thing, there's a lot of reference to sun and fire energy and things like that. And I don't believe too much of this has been seen, but yeah, in general, like that's the kind of thing that you're going to experience with this class. Is kind of how do I harness the power of the sun,
right.
And that's where we come up with ideas based off of things that come from the sky or bursts of energy from like a fire source or something like that. And yeah, that's sort of the general.
Yeah, we got
flow.
very fortunate to be able to show off the armor piece, the armor piece on stream the other day, with its really cool ability to launch basically the solar panels on the back. They launch into the sky as a drone, which collects energy and then blasts lasers down onto bad guys below, which was super duper cool. So we got to play a few matches with that, and it was really fun to see actually go live. So, well, then let's move on real quick to the next, which is just that. It's that weapon. I know we just already talked about it a little bit, but maybe you guys could just explain to us this drawing specifically, because obviously this is some art, this is some concepting. So where does this sort of piece come into play? What do you guys use it for, and at what stage?
This is actually a mob, but it does reference a lot the same aesthetic from the character.
Oh my gosh, you're right. It is a mob. It's not the weapon.
Yeah,
it's a mob.
It looks a lot like it, so I'm not surprised. But yeah, this is actually a drone that floats around, an eyeball drone that floats around. So it's actually kind of what I was saying. Sort of an omnipresent eye that's watching things. That's one of the things you'll see. And these have really cool ability callouts down at the bottom. You can see like the designs that we came up for. How could it move? How could it attack? What might those things look? And not all of those make it into the game, but those are some early preliminary kind of sketches of what we think the mob might do whenever it makes it into the level. If you want to talk about the backpack element, like, yeah, I think that that's kind of just personifying the same idea of like generating energy and having some sort of like thruster originally, I think is what we were thinking, but turning it into like a Hammer of Dawn sort of ability was just way more interesting and really fun as a mechanic, and it sort of looks like a helicopter or propeller or some sort of drone, and so that is a very natural way for it to fly off of the body and come around and blast mobs, Hammer of Dawn style. So
yeah, I said on stream when we were using it that at least the laser beam reminded me of the silliest but also kind of funniest part of that Bond film Die Another Day was when there's some unseen space laser up in space, right? And like it just will come down and obliterate things. Sometimes it will literally blow stuff up in in a second. Other times it'll take 3 minutes for it to melt an airplane, and it's like, okay, I'm not sure, but this is pretty darn cool because it moves fast, and it just zings around between bad guys that it's helping you take out. So
yeah,
really cool. It's really fun to see, and yeah, you're right. I like that it. It's almost as if, I'm not suggesting this is, but it's almost as if the character's ability, meaning the drone on the backpack, has like a similar origin to this. Like maybe these ones are ones that have been programmed against you or something like that. Or maybe you stole the other one and you purposed it for yourself. Either way, it's super cool to see the sort of the symmetry there. Before anything else, before I move on to the very last image. Good. Okay.
Do it.
Toad Man or Lizard Man, or I forget exactly what we were calling this guy. Frogman?
I believe that the original design was called Swamp Monster, but to me, it's a frog person. I call it Frogman, but
It's like a frog person to me.
But Swamp Monster, I think, was the original, and that goes back to those huts that we showed earlier. So that's sort of the habitat for this creature.
Which I'm
so glad. This is really fun.
I'm so glad Sasha was able to sort of expound on the thought process that goes into just the huts, which is part of the landscape, because now that you've explained that, it makes so much more sense when you look at this little guy with the lily pad on his head. Like, it makes so much more sense because so much thought's gone into it. So maybe, given everything we've learned about the art creation process and the drafting and then the modeling and stuff like that, maybe, Sasha, would you start by just saying, how does it go from concept to this guy here in the game? Just give a super quick overview of how that process goes.
From this image to in-game model?
No, I mean, maybe just from, you have the huts, or maybe you have the idea of we need a swamp theme. So great, now we need mobs. How does it go from we have a swamp level, we need mobs, to this guy?
Gotcha. Yeah, often it's quite a vague idea, not super prescribed, because we don't want to limit concept artists at their early exploration phase, right? So we know, like you said, we have these huts, we know how the environment will look like, and we understand what their habitat is. And with these clues, concept artists start exploring, and often they give us around 6 initial designs. They're very rough. So they don't have color, it's usually sketches. And the goal here for them to go very broad. Like they could be crazy silhouettes, could be very contained and small and so on. Like we do not limit the concept artists at this phase. And we start looking what is the most successful design, most interesting, most unique. And then we narrow down maybe to 2, 3, depending. Sometimes it's a really tough choice. Sometimes all 6 are excellent and you want to make all of them, but it's impossible. And this is just like sacrifices are made at that point. So we pick those 3 designs, and now we go in the color and start incorporating some of the colors from the environment as well, because all animals usually have some sort of colors that let them camouflage themselves against the habitat or where they hunt or something like that. That's the lily pad came from. Like if it's swamp creatures hiding under the lily pads and jumping at it, like to attack you or something like that. And then colors against the water, closer to water colors as well. Some greens if the waters are kind of swampy. And also the tools. We know these creatures are quite primitive, so they're not going to have sophisticated tools. And we try to showcase that, right? The stick is very rough, and the actual stone bit also, like you can tell it's been crafted with a primitive set of tools as well, just like chipping away like our ancestors did, right? And hopefully that lot of the small details and like some tribal patterns all tells a story of their origin. And bit by bit, like with every review, we'll layer those details, to really accomplish the design. So you wonder a lot, or it speaks for itself.
I almost, having learned so much backstory about these noble frog people and their very intensely thought out villages, I almost will feel bad when I take my new solar punk gear and I go storming through their villages, laying waste to everyone in it. I will almost feel bad.
You have to remember, they've all been infected by the Tangle, so the Tangle has corrupted them and taken them over, and when they're destroyed, they just return to the Tangle. They
really, I'm doing them a kindness, is what you're saying, Evan.
Healing them.
Very good, very good. Yes, because yeah, very good. Well, in that case, is there anything more we'd like to say about the Frogman? It is interesting to find out that the the lily pad was thought of as camouflage. I thought personally that he just wanted to look pretty. He just sort of
Little
was
bit of both.
like, he's like trying to show off for the frog lady around the corner, and he lives down the street in the next hut. And I sort of thought to myself, well, maybe he just thought today's lily pad kind of day,
It is also some sort of crown element as well, right? Because he's a chief, he's a mini boss from what I believe. Because there are other frog creatures that are green and they don't have any headgear or headdress, and they don't even
That's
have any
very
weapon.
true. I didn't even think about that, but that's very true. Yeah,
And also on the bigger house, you also see the lily pad. So it's all come together. We definitely don't talk about such details through our lore, but we hope our players will pick up on subtle details and kind of read between the lines. We have lots to share about these moments. Like even maybe next time we can talk about how the Solarpunk society came to be from Wasteland, because in our timeline, they're actually right after the Wasteland, and there are similarities in certain environments you can notice.
You know what? I think that's a fantastic idea, and I think that before the Steam release and Solarpunk release on December 16th on Steam, I think that we should do another sort of thing if there's time. If you folks can donate an hour or so of somebody's time, we should do exactly that. We should do a bit more of a deep dive into some of the lore and some of the fun world building that went into one of the eras, and then every once in a while we could just sort of do that. I think that would be super cool. Do you think there would be somebody on the dev team who'd be interested in doing that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh,
We can invite our environment team, and then we can talk about the Solarpunk Wilds.
I'm gonna have this environment team help me redecorate my office here because I need some better lore in my office. It's pretty bare at the moment. Well, Sasha, Evan, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys here.
Likewise.
I hope I wasn't too obnoxious with all the questions, but it was really wonderful. I thank you. I know the audience thanks you as well. We should do this again sometime, guys.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's do it.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, wonderful. Then we'll say goodbye to our guests, and I'll stick around to kind of close things out.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Our pleasure. Bye-bye.
Yeah. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, chat. How was that? That was kind of fun, wasn't it? That was great. Granted, I came into Out of Time pretty late in the, development process. Things were pretty well built already, so I came in 2 days before release onto Epic Game Store. So I didn't get a whole lot of time to, get familiar with things, but that is definitely super cool to see how a lot of that stuff is. And I think it'd be really fun in the future if we were able to get a bit more of a deep dive, maybe with some more media, into the lore. Like, I want to know what's going on at the power plant in here. You know what I'll do? Let's take a look at the maps. Let's take a look at the maps real quick. The maps when you're like getting ready to do a run. God, you guys can hear my voice cracking, right? I'm 40 years old. I went to school for theater. My voice isn't supposed to crack. I'm supposed to have a nice, deep, rich baritone voice, and it's cracking because there's mold in my house somewhere. I don't know where. I can't find it. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna get my proton pack and my trap, and I'm gonna capture it and send it off to, I don't know, whatever place things get sent off to. Okay. So then, where is it? Full screen. That's game only. There we go. Okay. Oops. Looks like I had an issue. Looks like I had an issue. All right. One moment, please, while I get this set back up. And there we go. Okay. One moment. Boy, that was fun. That was really fun. You guys can probably hear them pinging me. They're saying how much fun they had. That's very nice of them. Okay, so let's go over to the time map. So let's go to Wasteland. What I want to do is I want to sorry, Josettin, not playing right now. So there's Central Crater, Power Plant, Trash Town. That's what Sasha was chatting about, was Trash Town. New growth seed, which is obviously like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but there are some new growth seed is supposed to sort of be like this little enclave where there's plant life being grown, there's water, there's energy being generated. Someone clearly made an effort to try to rebuild some good society from new growth seed, which is really fun. I would think it would be super cool to go into like go into the details of each of these things, you know. I don't know, I just think it'd be cool. Anyway, that's what let's look at modern as well. Modern goes from farmlands to commercial to industrial to shattered base. There's got to be lots of little Easter eggs and little bits of lore in here, you know, that are worth exploring. And just based off how much we talked about with, just based off of what we got out of Sasha and Evan, I'll bet you money that there's just tons to go through. I'd like to do that. I think that would be super fun. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for now, folks, because it's getting towards the end of our time here. Not that we're out of time, it's getting towards the end, and I think rather than go play a few more games, I'm just going to leave it after the interview, because the interview was great. So anyway, it's been a pleasure hanging out with all of you. Don't forget that we have coming up, we have a Gleam contest. I need to show the details. So the Gleam contest is basically an opportunity for all of you to win a Steam Deck, which is pretty cool. I'm going to share the link in the chat as soon as I can get... There we go. I'm going to throw this in chat here. You guys should check out that link. Go check out the details of the contest because you might be able to win a customized Steam Deck themed after one of the eras from Out of Time, which is super cool. So go click that link and keep your eyes on the Discord to see about that. And other than that, we're going to sign off for today, and I will see you this weekend on Saturday. Thanks, everybody.